So what's next for running shoes? We've had exposed air pods in the Alphafly Next Percent, no rubber on the outsoles of shoes like the Kinvara Pro, carbon plates, and even data collecting analytics built into our shoes. But what's to come in the future? Let's discuss. Hey people, over the last few years we've had some significant improvements in terms of running shoes, technological changes that you have to be honest have helped people grab some life goal, personal bests and records within their racing and even training too. We've had all sorts of technology embedded into the midsole of our running shoes and lots of very innovative ideas within the design process too. But what's next as we head into 2024? Are there going to be some new game-changing technologies implemented into those shoes that we love so much? Before I get into my 4 key technologies and changes we're going to see, please make sure if you haven't done so already, you hit that subscribe button, but also give this video a thumbs up like. It really helps out. Dankeschön. Okay, number 1. First up, the big change recently within the shoe seems to be the stack height, with releases like the Prime X and the Super Blast both appearing above 40mm, at least in my size. I mean, they're way above that. I've got about 55mm in the Prime X, and there's about 44 odd in the Super Blast. Are we going to see even taller shoes in 2024? I think we probably will. But I have to say, I don't believe it's going to present an awful lot of advantage to runners out there if they're going to use these massive stack shoes. I think we've kind of hit a ceiling right now where brands have realised that if they go further than that, the shoe's just completely unstable. I've lost count of the number of people that have brought the Prime X and then realise they just can't run in it because it's just too tall and too unstable for them. Something like the Super Blast seems to present quite a good middle ground between stack height and firmness, and it's also pretty light as well. I think if we've got too much compressive and squashy foam, it starts to negate some of the actual advantages that that foam can bring. I think over the marathon, the weight of a shoe is actually quite important. The heft is going to drain those already very low energy tanks, possibly to a point where you can't actually continue. The Alphafly, for example, a very tall shoe in the first iteration, appeared to add more heft and has resulted in it being widely available. It's sat on shelves, you can pick up a pair, there's loads of colourways, whereas beforehand the first version was an instant seller. The Prime X Strung 2, for example, is reportedly much heavier than the previous version, and when you talk about the colossal cost of that shoe as well, I can't see people flocking to it to try out that huge stack. As I said, the previous one was already too squashy. They've had to resort this time to using some plates in there to actually improve the stability. Again, it could explain why you can easily pick that shoe up on a discount. You know, the first one is around about 150, 160 quid right now. This could be why up to this point Nike haven't bothered to really experiment too much above that 40mm mark. They seem to be staying within that pretty much all the time. There's one exception, which is the Tempo Next Percent, but that was out years ago. It's like about 2 years since they updated that shoe. So I'm absolutely certain we're going to see more highly stacked running shoes as we head into 2024, but I'm not sure that any of them will really present much of a significant advantage to us as runners. Number 2. There seems to be a real trend at the moment for decoupling the sections of the midsole in the sort of mid to forefoot and the heel. Again, that Tempo Next Percent, the Fast R Nitro Elite as well from Puma, and recent Brooks models have all experimented somewhat with that new trend. I think it was the Aurora BL that featured different midsole areas that are separated up from each other. Apparently in an attempt to make the shoe feel more natural underfoot. I'm not sure that many running shoes at the moment really feel all that natural underfoot. I mean, if we're going to walk around or run barefooted, we're going to run in a very different way to the way that we run in the shoes we have now. I think some of these shoes suggest they're going to give the runner's feet the opportunity to function in a way perhaps that the body was intended for. Now, I'm not entirely sure that the body was intended to run for 26.2 miles, especially on human-made tarmac roads. That just wasn't a thing when the humans were created by. However, they were. Whatever you believe, that's cool with me. Especially like a 100-mile trail event. No one's designed to do that at all. No. So trying to create a shoe that apparently makes you feel like you're running more naturally, well, I can see why people would want to do that, but I don't think running shoes at all with any sort of stack are helping us to do that. And I've got to be honest, I don't see it translating into the sort of daily shoe market, which is the big seller for all these brands. You know, Nike couldn't survive just on selling Alpha Flies alone, could they? It's all about the Pegasus and those type of shoes. Mrs. Eddbud commented to me the other day that these type of shoes look like split sole shoes aimed at dancers who want to point their toes more and have more sort of flexibility to the foot. Now, I could see that being something that might be useful if you were a 4-foot striker. I can't see why you'd want this much flexibility in a shoe. In fact, brands are using every opportunity to place very rigid plates into their midsoles. I can't see that that's making our running any more natural. That, in fact, reduces the amount that the foot can actually flex. So we've got two things here that are kind of cancelling each other out. So it's the same design, but a drastically different implementation and intended use. I think the other issue that's going to arise from these type of shoes where you've got a decoupled midsole is durability, where you're removing large amounts of foam that make up the integral structure of the shoe. Without a plate, there's not a lot holding these things together. Will we see more of these shoes in the future? I think this is one technology that will begin to die out over the next few years. People just favour those softer foams that are a little bit more durable. I don't think this is something that's going to continue to be a trend. Number 3. Talking of upper materials there, I think we're going to see an increased use of 3D printed uppers. Structures like we've seen in the Prime X Strung are going to become very popular, I think. It's one of the best I've tried. It's mega durable, easy to clean, very resistant to elements and still breathable too. What I love as well is that they seem very consistent between the different pairs. So you could pick up 2 pairs of a shoe if you really love the shoe, use one of them, and then when it runs out, put the other one on and it's going to feel very, very similar to the first. That means Adidas can produce carbon copies of shoes that are very, very close, rather than sometimes being somewhat inconsistent in terms of production tolerance. It means they're able to manufacture something that's incredibly light and features more or less dense areas on the upper exactly where they're needed. Designs can be updated and prototyped very quickly as well. They don't need to wait around for people to produce them. They can just print them out and give them a go. I like the idea that a pair of shoes as well will have technically the same upper as another pair, meaning if you like a specific shoe, you can buy a second pair and keep them stashed away. Add this to a specially designed midsole produced to, limit the weight. I think you've got an amazing combination there that's going to work very, very well. Imagine like the strung upper on like a Takumi Sen 8 or 9, or even perhaps the Adios Pro series as well. I bet that's got you salivating. A strung upper even on an Ultra Boost, yeah, I'd give that a go. So I'm very keen to see more of this technology, to see if some other brands start to implement it within their running shoe lineup. I bet we'll see more of that in latter parts of 2023 and 2024. Number 4, my last technology. Last thing that I see being implemented more and more often as we move forward with running shoes is the further addition of non-foam elements into the midsole of these super shoes. Now, foam's a really great material. You can change it into whatever shape you want. It's very, very light, reasonably easy to produce as well, but it quickly loses shape, especially when we're talking about running over sort of half marathon distance, and it just begins to start to bottom out as well. Plates have been used to help create a trampoline-like effect with these foams, but nothing quite helps with this more than a resilient air unit. I think that's why Nike are persisting with those air units in the front of the Alpha Fly. They do seem to have dropped it though from their basketball lineup, just resorting back to large air units in the sort of heel area of the shoe and thinner zoom units in the forefoot. We see that in the recently leaked LeBron 21. I bet money on it that Nike will switch up their air unit usage even further into a shoe in the near future. Something with a much larger air unit in the forefoot, perhaps taking up the whole area, sticking with that foam in the heel there to absorb the impact of those heel strikes. I think they'll stick with that 40mm stack in the rear of the shoe, perhaps even a thinner air unit in the heel. I really am perplexed that Adidas seem to have dumped their energy rods from the Prime X. It was a beautiful shoe. Perhaps it's to aid in stability, perhaps something to do with durability, I don't know, but I was really surprised to see it. It's an odd choice really, when you think that the top line shoes like the Sen or the Adios Pro both use those energy rods. I think though with slower sales of the Alpha Fly 2 and the Vaporfly 3 as well, let's be honest, Nike will look to switch things up to give runners another reason to go back to the swoosh. Something new, something innovative, especially considering that other brands like Asics, Puma and On Running are beginning to catch them up a little bit. Okay, that's my hot takes on what's going to be coming in 2024 in terms of technology. Where are running shoes going? I never quite know really. What are your high-tech hot takes for the future? Let us know down in the comments. Quick musical interlude for you. I think it was back in the late 80s a biopic came out for Jerry Lee Lewis, and he redid loads of his songs just for the biopic, and these are amongst some of the best performances of those songs that you're going to hear. His versions of Great Balls of Fire and also a whole lot of shaking going on are incendiary on this album. Wild One as well is particularly good. I think they used that towards the end of the film where he was shown sort of making a slight comeback, I suppose, from some of the troubles that he had earlier in his career. They're played with such zest and sort of enthusiasm that it's hard not to enjoy them on the film. It is worth a watch actually, with a very young Winona Ryder I think in there. Dennis Quaid seems to really enjoy playing the part of Jerry Lee Lewis too. If you're into rock and roll, go and check it out. The original soundtrack from Great Balls of Fire, the Jerry Lee Lewis biopic. Thanks for tuning in, people. Hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I'm always keen to see them. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up like. My name's Eddbud and I'll be seeing you